The Road Not Taken by Robert Lee Frost. About the author. Robert Lee Frost was an American poet. He is highly regarded for his realistic depictions of rural life. A popular and often quoted poet, Frost was honored frequently during his lifetime. His work frequently employed themes from the early 1900s rural life in New England. Theme of the poem The Road Not Taken. Problems of choices in life. Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken is a poem about the choices faced in life. To illustrate these choices, Frost uses a metaphor of a forked path in a wood. One way is well trodden and the other is fresh with grass. The first symbolizes a safe, easy choice which others often take. The second, the one Frost chooses, is more risky and unknown. Frost regrets that he could not travel both, but just as life's decisions are irreversible, the one he chooses leads on to further paths. The poem The Road Not Taken. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two road diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Stanzas in detail. First stanza. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveller, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Once the poet was walking down a road, and then there was a diversion. There were two different paths, and he had to choose one out of them. The poet says that as he was one person, he could travel on one road only. Means he had to choose one out of these two roads. Here, the yellow wood means a forest with leaves which are wearing out and they have turned yellow in color. The season is obviously autumn. It represents a world which is full of people, where people have been living for many years. The poet kept standing there and looked at the path very carefully as far as he could to see. Before taking the path, he wanted to know how it was, to see was it suitable for him or not. He was able to see the path till from where it curved, after which it was covered with trees and was hidden. Sometimes it happens in our life also. When we have choices, we have alternatives. But we have to choose only one out of them. We take time to think about the pros and cons of these choices, whether it is suitable for us or not, and only then we take a decision on what the path we should choose. The second stanza. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing day had warned them really about the same. The poet kept on looking at one path for a long time to check if it is the right path for him or not, and then he decided and walked on another path because he felt that both the paths were equally good. He says, just as fair. So he felt that both paths were equally good and started walking on one of them. He adds that maybe he felt that the path was better for him, so he chooses it as it had grass on it, which means that it was unused and was more challenging. Not many people had walked on this path earlier, that it is why this path is grassy. Here, wandered where means that it was not walked over by many people. After he walked on the path for some distance, he realized that both the paths had been worn out the same way. Both the paths were similar and worn out. Even in our life, we take any path or option, but all of them have the same benefits, disadvantages, problems, challenges, and we must face them. Think that we are choosing a better option, but it is not that way. Third stanza. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. The poet says that both the paths were similar that morning. Both had leaves on them, and no one had stepped on them as they were still green in color. He decided that that day he would take one path and keep other path for another day, although he knew that one way leads on to another way. He also knew that he could not go back on the choice that he had made. Similarly, even in our life, once we choose an option, we must keep on moving ahead with that option, and we never get a chance to come back and take the other option that we had left earlier. Fourth stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. He says that in the future he will take a deep breath and say that once upon a time he had such a point in life that there were two options for him, and he traveled on that road which had been traveled upon by less number of people. That decision of his decided his future. Similarly, in future, when you grow up, then you will say that once upon a time when you were young, you had two options. The choice that you made you what you became of it. This is a very strong message for all the students that you should be wise and be careful while making choices out of the options that you have in your life, because your future depends on the choice that you make today. Thank you all. Stay healthy.